Nice. Hey, welcome back to Dukes on Switch. Back today with a green, white, black Maverick stream, which is what I've been hoping for. This is probably one of my favorite variants of Maverick, and I think it's pretty well positioned right now. This is Achillies27's list post bans. This is a pretty cool list. I'm a huge fan of the Black Splash right now. There's obviously some pretty cool cards you can be playing around with. Including cards like Abrupt Decay, Thoughtseize, Plague Engineer as well. This version's a little bit different to what I usually expect, but it's really cool to see. This version has a really light Black Splash in the main deck with just Plague Engineer, and really just Thoughtseize and an extra Engineer and Kaya in the board. So we're not seeing anything like Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, just relying on the plagues, the swords, and to some extent the equipment package to get rid of creatures, which is pretty cool. It's, yeah, mostly a green-white based deck that does have some pretty cool cards in it. We do have Gaddock Teeg in the main deck, alongside Collector Oof to help against some of the combo decks. Prelate also in here, which I think is a pretty fine card. I've been running into a lot of Show and Tell, which of course Prelate's pretty good against, and it can be pretty good against decks like Doomsday as well, acting a little bit like a Meddling Mage. So yeah, pretty cool to see how that goes. Just the 3 Hierarchs and the 1 Birds of Paradise, with 3 Green Suns, cutting 1 for the Once Upon a Time, and then we still have a pretty good Green Suns package, including Red Knight of Autumn, the usual suspects, I'll call them. But yeah, really interested to see how this goes. I know Achilles has been having some pretty good success with it, so hopefully we do as well. I really like Thoughtseize right now. Comes in against a multitude of decks. Pretty happy to bring it in against the other fair decks, especially the Stoneblade decks like D&T and Maverick, because taking something like a Turn 1 Vial, or a Recruiter, a Green Suns, a piece of equipment, it's pretty good. A lot of these decks are definitely becoming strategies that have at least 2 cards in their hand for a lot of the time in games. So Thoughtseize isn't too much of a bad draw mid to late game, but obviously it's pretty good in the opener. So let's see how this goes. It should be pretty fun. If you're wanting to check out how Achilles is going with the deck so far, you can find him on Twitter, and then you can also see his spreadsheet that he's currently working on, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, a lot of time and effort going into it, which is cool. But I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying your Sundays. I assume most of you are still on your weekends. It is Sunday night here, which is nice. I did a hike today, which is cool. I did a co-stream this morning as well with Nick C from MTG Mate, who is a local part of the Eternal community, has been around since it began. Launched mtgmate.com.au, which is a Australian online card reseller, about 3 years ago. Sponsors the channel, which is cool. Does some giveaways, which is awesome. And he plays a lot of Valakut decks, a lot of Primetime decks, and really likes the Dryad Titan deck in Legacy. So we went through a league with that, which you'll be able to find on my YouTube channel probably tomorrow. Speaking of which, if you aren't a part of my YouTube channel, that's where that's the wrong one. That is where you can find all my streams and bonus recorded leagues. I've started doing YouTube exclusive content once a week, where I'll take a deck through that I have at least some experience with, so I'm not just jetting off with no experience. And it's been awesome. It's been really cool. Recently monetized at 1,000 subs, which is awesome. So shout out to my YouTube followers. A big thank you. It means a lot. Yeah, a lot of Maverick recently, some D&T, some Loam, Dry Titan this morning, of course. So still keeping it fair, but I feel like the yeah, it's opened up. Hey D5, very happy to see you. Haha, back in action. Yeah, I had the night off, so I thought we would. I was gonna do a recorded stream, or at least a recorded league for YouTube. But I thought, why not have a look at Achilles' list that he's been playing around with and see how it goes in a league, which should be, yeah, pretty fun. Let's change that to Green Suns. Nice. Whew. But yeah, it's the new Magic has been really nice. Results personally have been average, but the losses have felt a lot better than losing to a card like Arcanist or Oko, which I'm sure a lot of people are overhearing from, but it is, yeah, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to lose to a ton of different decks, which is kind of cool. You just had a crazy match versus Maverick. Is it common for Chalice to be in the sideboard? Yeah, Chalice is pretty good. So I would say for most Maverick players, you would probably play 5 cards in the board for combo. So you would probably have a mix of Deafening Silence and Chalice of the Void, or Thoughtseize, maybe even Canonist, because it does have some effect against decks like Elves. But the good thing about Chalice is that it's a turn 1 play you can make against some of the Lotus Petal LED decks, which is what Maverick really struggles. You know, we have a lot of good 2-drops in Thalia, Ithaswan Canonist, all of that. So, you know, you can see about two Chalice in the sideboard for sometimes. This is probably a mulligan. I think we just have too many knights here. But, yeah, Chalice is also interesting against Blue-White Miracles because usually you're siding out your swords. So you don't have too many 1-drops to really care about. So you definitely bring in Chalice to turn off opposing Swords to Plowshares, Brainstorms, Portents, Ponders. I am gonna mulligan this. I think there are just better hands. This isn't too bad. Turn 1 Green Suns for Dried Arbor, and then we have a Green Suns backup, which is kind of nice. So I'm gonna keep this. And I think because we have the Ramanap, I just want to drop the Verdant here. Sorry, drop the Savannah, and then just fetch for it with the Verdant. These 2 lands have some utility, so I do like them quite right. Oh, yeah. D5, thank you very much. There we go. There's some consensus going for Bayou here, because it just turns on all my colors, so I think we will do that. It does open it up to Wasteland, which is a little bit rough against the deck where Plague Engineer is good, so that's actually interesting. So we currently have a Bayou and a Scrubland in the deck that cast black spells. We could just go for a Savannah here and then hope that Ramanap gets the Verdant back for a black source, but if we are up against a deck where a Plague Engineer off the top is really good against, something like Goblins or Elves or even Death and Taxes, then I do want to have the black mana available ASAP. So I think I'm actually happy going for it, because we also have the Ramanap to get it back if it does get Wastelanded. Alright. Not too sure what my opponent is on. Luckily the Green Suns is going to be pretty nice. And if it is a combo deck, like Show and Tell, I guess we could go for Gaddock Teeg, which doesn't really stop too much these days, unfortunately. Once is pretty interesting. I don't mind Wasteland into Ramanap. I could also Wasteland my opponent, and then Green Suns for Noble Hierarch. I could also hold up Once Upon a Time. I don't mind Wasteland hold up Once Upon a Time, and just keep the Green Suns for now, because Preordained usually means it's going to be a combo deck, and off of Volk it probably means it's going to be a sneak attack deck. So I kind of want to keep the Green Suns for as long as possible, just in case it's something like Blue-Red Delver, and I want to use the Green Suns for maybe like another Reliquary. So I think Wasteland to turn off a Daze, and then hold up once is fine. Fetch is fine. I could be playing around Daze here, but I don't really mind if the once gets countered, but if they're going after my mana here, I could definitely see something get hit. But thankfully, we have some pretty good mana here. I kind of just want the Verdant. The Wasteland's also interesting. The Bolt definitely means they're going to be on a Delver deck, so this is definitely a thought. Okay, so we don't want the Gaddock Teeg, pretty irrelevant. Knight of Autumn, Knight of Awesome, also irrelevant. the Knight a little bit far off, but it is currently a 4/4, which is nice. We already have the Wasteland in the bin, so I kind of like just getting the Verdant here. And then hopefully just being able to Green Suns next turn for another Mana Dork. Knight off the top is pretty nice. Yeah, Knight of Awesome does... Nice. Okay, that's pretty awesome. This also means next time we could cast the Ramanap and then get back Wasteland, but I probably like to consider Daze. But I guess we'll see what happens here. Young Pyromancer. Okay, that's fine. There's some consensus that my opponent is holding back a Daze here. So this is pretty interesting. We can cast the Ramanap, which we do get hit pretty bad by not casting the a land first, because we can be greedy, not play around Daze to get the Wasteland back, because our opponent didn't Daze any of our spells so far. And it's a big giveaway, because our opponent went for our mana pretty early on with Lightning Bolt, and then they also didn't counter the Once Upon a Time. So I think here I'm actually happy just to go for Karakas into Knight, which plays around Daze. It also plays around Bolt, because the Knight's going to be a 6/6 here. They're going to force pitching Ponder. Okay. I think I'm still happy just to Swords here. It's not playing around Daze, but I think that's okay, because if we can get the Ramanap online, I'll be pretty happy. The Young Pyromancer can be an issue for Maverick. Plague Engineer is a really nice out, but it can be pretty brutal. Okay, this is going to be pretty brutal, because now they take us off both our mana sources as well. Didn't have a great way to play around that. Opponent at least has gone through 2 Wastelands. Hey PvP. Not too bad. Currently in game 1 against what looks to be Blue-Red Delver. They're attacking our mana pretty well, which isn't too bad. You know, a land off the top allows us to cast this Thalia, which is going to be pretty nice. But another Wasteland's pretty huge. The hunter becomes the hunted. I think that's probably the best way to put this situation. That's a great start. We have a lot of time, which is nice. This elemental isn't doing too much right now. But yeah, triple Wasteland, and then the Bolt and the Chain Lightning on our mana sources were really good. Yeah, at least the clock isn't fast. I'm really scared of the 4th Wasteland, which, there it is. But at least now we don't have to worry about Wasteland. That's always nice. And you know, although this is just 1 a turn, I do assume we'll get out of this by the time we get to the lands that we want. But opponent really rewarded for going after our mana, especially like the bolts on the creatures. And at least a land off the top allows us to cast the Hex Drinker, which is pretty nice. Stifle would be pretty rough, but I don't mind going for Savannah, because it means something like any sort of land off the top. We also know that 4 Wastelands are in the bin, so pretty happy just to cast this. Yeah, thankfully don't have to worry about Wasteland anymore. I don't believe my opponent would have it any way to get them back from the graveyard either, so... I think the one card that I am kind of concerned about is True Name Nemesis, because that really pushes the clock, but... It looks like they're just going to hold up the Brazen Burrower. That's not the worst. Hey Tim, really well. Had a good co-stream this morning with Nick, and then went for a hike, which is pretty cool. So this Brazen will be 4 a turn, which is putting us to 6. Hey Dark Cloud. Yeah, really enjoying the post-ban legacy. It's been really enjoyable. I mean, I'm getting pretty thrashed here by Blue Red Delver, but I am really enjoying it, so... Boarding's going to be interesting. I do like the chokes. I don't mind the extra engineer because of Young Pyromancer and probably also True Name Nemesis. The Knight of Autumn, the Gaddock Teeg, the Collector Oof are probably the first things to look at removing. Hex is okay. I think just with a bit of patience we can play around with Hex a little bit more. Hey Cabrito, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? The Prelates are always interesting because obviously against this deck, Prelate for 1 is pretty good, but it does turn off our Swords to Plowshares. So if we're in a position where they have something like a Delver in play and we want to be able to cast the Swords, the Prelates can be a little bit rough. Hey Vinny, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? I think this is fine. Yeah, Prelate's only good if we've already used some swords to keep some creatures off the board and then play it. I think Prelate is better than any card here. Yeah, the libraries are interesting because I can't be too aggressive with them. But I think yeah, I would take that because it can be a little bit suspect with Prelate in hand. This is a pretty nice hand, I'll keep this. Access to early mana. Stoneforge is really nice because it turns all our mana dorks into threats, which is cool. Something like Blazing Volley would be quite good against this hand. But seeing next turn we get to go, hopefully, Noble and Stoneforge Mystic, I'd be pretty happy to keep this. That's actually really nice. It does play into Blazing Volley a little bit, but I do like just going for Thalia here and then Noble. Thalia first to play around Days, and then if Thalia resolves, we don't have to play around Days, so... No flip is pretty huge. No attacks either. So that's really interesting. They didn't remove the Thalia if they have something like a Bolt. Plague's pretty good. We don't currently have black mana. I can Green Suns for 2, or I can just play Stoneforge Mystic. Happy to attack first. I could tap out for the sword here. I kind of like just going for Stoneforge Mystic and getting Jide. There's the Force. That's not too bad because I've already got the sword in hand, which is nice. I could build up my mana. So if I Green Suns here for Dried Arbor, next turn if I draw a land, I have access to 6 mana, which is enough to play the sword and equip it, which is pretty nice, but it just opens me up to anything like Blazing Volley. Can't really play around Blazing Volley, let's be honest, so... Green Sun's interesting because I would usually hold it for a Knight, but with no fetch lands so far, the Knight is open to something like a Bolt. So I think we will just pass. I might even need the Green Suns if they do sweep the board. Another no flip. No attacks either. Interesting. I wonder if they're thinking about Scrib Ranger, which is a weird one because they obviously surely have answer to either removal or counter magic with 4 cards in hand. Hey yo ho! Thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? Yeah, interesting the no play. Maybe they have like Brazen Borrower, bounce. I don't mind casting the Jide here because at least it plays around days. Hey Kip, thank you for the follow. Let me know where you're from. Hey, PMG, thank you very much. Let me know where you're from. Haha. Much love. A braid. Okay. Interesting. So they used a braid on the Jit, but not on the Thalia. That makes me think they have either access to a lot of removal, or something else. 2 mana. Ethereal Forger. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. From the US, primarily playing Omni, currently on U Green. Nice. I got blue, green, and paper. I'm a big fan of it. I kind of want to play Uro in the 75 to have a bit more play against some of the more unfair decks in the more fair decks in the format, but this is an interesting one. I feel like my opponent has a Bolt, but there's definitely no need. There's no reason not to just try to get in here with an attack. I guess then a braid on the Jit would, yeah, a braid on the Jit's pretty huge here, but maybe I should have seen that coming. Yeah. Still gonna build up my mana here. So every time this creature attacks, they get to return one of these instants or sorceries. So probably just getting back the Abrade. Of One Mind is very cool. They did use the Wasteland, which is interesting, to play that. Once. I'm gonna try to resolve this Sylvan Library first. I do need a dig for a Swords to Plowshares. And I'm gonna once now in case we just find a land, but we don't. I guess it's a bird. Unfortunately. It means we have a blocker in the air, and we can cast the Plague, but, I mean, we're at 11, we're taking 6 here. Our opponent hasn't used any bolts yet. So... this will definitely be a tough one. We also know about the Abrade, so Birds isn't looking too great at being any sort of defensive creature. We know about the Force, I think, still as well from the top, but that is just going to be game. Rough. Had a pretty strong start. Got some good attacks in with the Thalia. I probably could have read the first Abrade a little bit better, because if I thought about a second Abrade, then obviously that attack with the Noble Hierarch is looking pretty mediocre. But that whale, the Ethereal Forger, I think it's called, is really solid. Cool to see it being played. We played against it a few times in, I'm going to say Death Shadow. That looked pretty strong. But just as a big creature, even as just a 3/3 evasive flyer, you know, we know how good Delver is, especially to get some stuff back. Spellbelly? I like Spellbelly. Spellbelly is very cool. Spellbelly is the new official name. There is no other name for that whale. But yeah, Blue Red Delver. Doing great Delver things in game 1. I mean, we had a pretty good start, and then the quad Wasteland and double Bolt on our two mana accelerants was brutal. Even getting out that Ramanap early on, they had the removal for it, so it would have been tough either way. On the play against Champ. Yeah, this hand's a little bit rough because of the Dried Arbor, but otherwise it's not the worst. The issue is that I guess Oof does have some well-roundedness, but the mana here is a little bit rough. We get to go Dryad, and then next turn Oof, which could just be irrelevant. We do get to once, so I think the best thing here is just turn 1 Dryad, turn 2 once for Thalia. Get a white source and play Thalia. But it is a little bit risky in a way. I think the tough thing is that these 3 cards are obviously good against a variety of decks, but in some matchups they're going to be pretty much dead. So, you know, Swords against Ants or Tez, it's just a mulligan. Collector Oof against a deck like Delver or Elves, it's just dead. And then Prelate against some of the Fed decks is pretty dead. So I think there is a better 6 here. And this is pretty close to it. I even get to use the once to hopefully find a mana accelerant, so I'm going to keep this and just bottom the Savannah. I like the double Fetchlers because it means we can cast the Knight as a 4/4 as early as turn 2, which is kind of cool. Cool. I'm going to once first. In the blind, I want to have things to shuffle back in, so... Huh. I probably don't mind the other Knight. Just to have a nice curve after we... This is actually pretty interesting because if my turn 2 is Stoneforge, my turn 3 is probably Wasteland and hold up Stoneforge. The Questing Beast might change that, if I do want to not put myself behind a turn. I don't mind just hitting my land drops either. But we have a pretty high chance of hitting our lands, so I think it's just going to be the Knight. Play a Windswept and pass. Hey, Anelio, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? This is probably going to be Death and Taxes. So seeing that I believe a Swords to Plowshares was put at the bottom, I probably do want to draw one, so I want to fetch my deck before I actually draw a card here. I'm actually pretty happy to go for basics early on as well, because it means we can play around Wasteland. And there's the Swords. That's exactly why we shuffled. That's pretty good. Jide is just an all-star here. The issue is that obviously D&T now has access to Skyclave Apparition, which is just a really nice enter to Jide. So I want to make sure I'm a little bit oh, Polluted Delta, okay. Well, that is not what I was expecting. I did thin my deck, yeah. This is going to be an interesting matchup if it's a blue-white based control deck, because they can be pretty tough for Maverick. Yeah, especially if they're like Teferi here, bounce the Knight. Okay, just a Skyclave. That's not too bad. Green Suns. Okay. Well, now I don't mind just building out my mana with the Green Suns for Noble Hierarch, and then going for Wasteland on the Tundra. It could be Esper Vial. It could still be Esper Vial. Yeah, that's correct. I'm gonna get a Noble just because it can attack with the Jide. I could get a bird because it turns on Plague Engineer off the top, but I like that Noble can attack. Not too sure on the deck yet. Main deck Skyclave, I think, could definitely see playing a blue-white Stoneblade deck as an extra like Council's Judgment, but I'm not sure if Council's Judgment's better in Stoneblade if you're playing things like Supreme Verdict, Mystic Sanctuary, Snapcaster Mage. So maybe this is going to be Esper Vial. I think that basic definitely makes it think that this is Esper Vial. Yeah, that's pretty rough. At least if we draw a land here, what I can do is play the Jide out and then just swords the Skyclave if they do attack. I probably want double green here, so I'm going to get the Bayou. A nice attack for my opponent, because it means that I can't swords the Skyclave and then block the Plague Engineer with a 3/3. I've definitely given away that I have swords as well. Probably happy just to take this, because if they have some sort of flicker effect, okay. This also gives me a creature for the Jide, which is kind of nice. And doing it in end step means I can't flicker it now, so... Swords is fine. At least the swords isn't going at one of my actual creatures, which is kind of nice. Opponent's still with 2 cards. Hey, GWB Donut, welcome. Green Suns. I think we just go for Knight here. They could just hardcast Force, which is, look, that's the only reason you'd probably fetch there. Alright. We've got a game in our hands. Opponent has 1 card left. What I don't want to see is a Recruiter. Recruiter's the main thing. Wasteland's interesting. I don't mind just getting Beast down here and getting some damage in. They're attacking with the Plague, which is interesting. Land, 2 cards in hand, nothing. Huh. What does that mean? Maybe Venser? Venser sometimes sees play in Esper Vial. I think here I'm happy just to play Ooze and then probably just go and get Birds of Paradise? I can't get a Plague Engineer. I could also just keep the Green Suns here. I don't mind that. They do nothing. Wasteland here does stop 2 3-drops coming down, so something like Recruiter into Soul Herder. So I do like taking them off for color, and I think if I do, it's probably off double white for Skyclave to make them fetch if they do. They're going to float a blue, but do nothing. So this Plague Engineer is really what I'm relying on here to get any sort of information from my opponent, because if they don't attack with it, they obviously don't have an answer to the Questing Beast. Yeah, and that's pretty nice for us. I don't want to 5, I don't want to 5. Ah, I 5'd. I should have eaten something with the Scoos, but... I probably don't mind just attacking with the Questing Beast with the Jide. Actually, this can't block, which is nice. Because it's 2 power. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. I'm going to keep the counters here and just pass back with 2 open mana for the Scavenging Ooze, because then we have lethal next turn if they don't have anything. We can kill the Plague Engineer, beef up the Scavenging Ooze, and then swing back. Brainstorm is fine. We also have Dried Arbor, which is nice, so it's another threat that I can equip the Jide to and force my opponent to deal with it where they might not want to, with something like a Swords to Plowshares, which is nice. Still no attack. Tundra. Black. Double black and white. Liliana? Double black and white. Soul Herder. Okay. I think here I'm happy to kill the Soul Herder. I could kill the Plague Engineer and then just attack in with everything. I think just killing the Engineer is fine, because next turn they kind of have to block either one of these, or at least get close to it. We also have the Plague Engineer to deal with the Soul Herder, so I don't mind just going to end step. They target this. Kill this. Still gonna fetch here. Go and get Dried Arbor, because it's just another legal, another attacker. We can eat the Plague Engineer. Untap, cast Plague Engineer on Soul Herder, and then swing in for 8. That also gets me another green source for the Scoos, which is nice. We can name Spirit here. Move to combat. Attack with everything. They're going to fetch, which is interesting. 2 mana. Could be Fatal Push. Oh, it could be Eliminate. It's going to be Fatal Push. Okay, that's fine. We still get to eat Soul Herder here and put them down to 2. Alright. Looking strong. Thankfully next turn the Dried Arbor with the Jide is also just a really good threat, so... Lucky to get out of that one. I think they had a pretty nice start, but we thankfully were able to do some more shenanigans than them. Choke is interesting in this matchup. I definitely want to take out the Thalias. Oof is fine, because if they're relying on Vial, I think a great way for Maverick to fight Esper Vial is to go after their mana. Gaddock Teeg can come out, so I do want the Plague Engineer. The Thought Seizers are actually pretty interesting, especially against a deck like Esper Vial that's always going to have value in hand. Kaya is also interesting because you can exile up to one target creature, which means I can reset a Plague Engineer, I can reset a Knight of Autumn. There is some value to it, so I do like Kaya over at least one Thoughtseize. It might be something like this. Too bad Questing Beast isn't indestructible as well. Yeah, that's fair. Why Teeg out? I think because in this matchup, the only thing Teeg stops against them is Force of Will. And if they're wanting to, 2-for-1 my threats, I'm more than happy for that. Teeg does stop our own Green Sun Zenith, which I think the dyssynergy of that is greater than the upside of, stopping something like Force of Will. So, and I'm also bringing in Kaya, so I don't want to be in a position where I have Teeg on play and I can't cast the Kaya. Prelate's probably also pretty bad, so I don't mind the extra Sylvan Library here. I assume they'd also side out Force of Will. I think because they have enough answers through the creatures that they play for our creatures, that Force would probably be one of the first cuts for them. This is pretty good, I think. This is a pretty nice hand. I'll keep this. I kind of like turn 1 Noble. Oh. We go first? What happened there? What happened there? They chose not to play first. That is a very interesting choice. I like Noble into turn 2 Sylvan Library and Thoughtseize. Because if they have Vial, we have Green Suns for Collector Oof. Yeah, maybe it was a misclick. Do get to Thoughtseize them first. Okay. Baleful Strix, Skyclave, Unearth. This is actually a pretty good hand against Thoughtseize. I think I just have to take the Unearth here. Unfortunately. I guess, yeah. Because it's 1 mana. Oh, did I take it? Good, okay. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, I'm not too sure why they did go first as well. But at least knowing about the Skyclave Apparition, it means that I probably want to just pay 8 straight away off this Sylvan Library. Play the island, and then probably the Strix. Yeah. Knight's pretty good. Wasteland would be pretty good here, and there it is. So let's just pay this, get the Wasteland, take them off the Scrubland here, which is really nice. And then play the Knight. If I really want to get rid of the Baleful Strix, I also have Green Suns for Knight of Autumn, which is kind of nice. I definitely don't want the Sylvan Library, and I probably don't want the Ooze here. So, yes, one Flooded Strand was already in play. I think here I like just Beatdown. But I do also like the shuffle of Green Sun Zenith. So this is an interesting one. I can't keep my opponent off the Skyclave next turn. I kind of like Knight of Autumn here. Knight of Autumn, get rid of the Baleful Strix, and then next turn we can play the Questing Beast, which won't be hit by the Skyclave. I'm probably happy just attacking here for 4. We're probably going to lose it to the Skyclave Apparition, so I want to get some value out of it. And I'm going to assume my opponent's going to use 1 Flooded Strand just to get a basic here. I've definitely heard of people who like Control decks to go on the draw to get the extra card. Yeah, Plague as well is pretty nice because it does hit the Strix. But I did want the shuffle effect. I guess we can shuffle with Knight anyway. There's definitely some merit to using the Plagueager on Strix there, 100%. There is Skyclave. Take out the Sylvan Library. Okay. Noble. I don't mind here just Caracas Beast. Feels like a force. I wonder if they kept in Force of Will. No. Pretty happy just to attack with all 3 here. If they want to trade with the Knight of Autumn, that's fine. We get a 2/2 back, which is nice. They could also keep it for flicker effects with like Soul Herder. But they are at 5, so that's pretty concerning for them. Another Skyclave, that's fine. Well, that's pretty good. I don't mind attack with both. Maybe even last turn there's some merit to not play the second Hierarch and just hold up Caracas. That's always interesting. I could preemptively name Spirit with Plague Engineer, which isn't too bad, to make these 1/1 so a double block isn't available. I don't mind just attacking with 1 Knight here. They don't really have to block both if we attack with both, so I might as well just attack with the Knight and make sure they can't, you know, double block and trade with it. I'd rather just keep getting creatures back. I think the value and patience here is pretty good because I'm in a really good position, so I don't have to rush too many things. Especially with the swords in hand. If my opponent's out of basics and they want to go for like a Swords to Plowshares here, they do have to get a dual land, so... Pretty happy with where we sit. I also have Canopy opened, which is nice, so I think I'm pretty happy just to pass here. Get to a position where I can just swords this Skyclave to get a 4/4. Brainstorm is fine. But yeah, I think there's merit to not Knight of Autumning the Baleful Strix, and perhaps using the Engineer. This feels like a Soul Herder, perhaps? Or a Plague. Okay. Let's float White. White. Probably name human here. My plan is to get Canopy to draw a card, so we get 2 takes for extra removal or something else to play. I think I'm just swordsing the Skyclave because I get a 4/4 back, and then we can just attack with everything. They have to block the 4/4, and then we just have lethal otherwise. Even if they keep both of these and go to 3, I think we can just go wide. Thankfully, this is lethal. Nice. Nice to get a little comeback. The first loss was brutal. Definitely. To be a Wasteland deck that just gets Wasteland out of the game is a pretty hard one to swallow, but Blue-Red Delver can definitely do that to you. Especially when it's the Eternal Masters Wasteland. Come on, it's Tempest or bust, 100%. Alright, we've got a match. Up against Clog. Thanks, D5, I am too. This hand is sweet, happy to keep this. Will be interesting to see what we're up against, and see if Plague is actually good. Unbanned Strip Mine. That is something that I could get behind, but I'm sure the larger community would say no. DRS did nothing wrong? Yeah! Yeah. Alright, opponent went to 5. Interesting. What have they got? Tempest or Bust, and I have a playset of the new Zendikar Expedition Wastelands for my deck. PvP, I think that's very cool. But this is not. Oh, unless they're trying to win through an empty. I assume this is a graveyard deck. Elvish Spirit Guide. Yeah. Okay. So if we get rid of this creature, then we can win. So we need to find a Swords to Plowshares off the top. Yikes. I don't think there's any reason to once first. I feel like this is just the win. They sacrifice this, they put their library into the bin, they reveal Narcomoebas, and then they can Dread Return. I might as well. I do want to see their deck, and I think a Verdant doesn't give too much away about what we're on, so. Alright. So, for those of you at home, this is a deck called... now I'm going to blank on the name of the deck. It is called Oops All Spells. So this is a deck that uses a lot of mana accelerants to hit something like an Undercity Enforcer into play, or a Basilisk Spy, so they can flip their yard, or flip their library into their graveyard because they run no lands. And then this card, Narcomoeba, when it's put into your graveyard from your library, you may put it onto the battlefield, so you get back 4 of these. You can then Dread Return, returning target creature from your graveyard to your battlefield with flashback, sacrifice 3 creatures, or 3 Narcomoebas, to put a Thassa's Oracle into play, trigger it, and win, which is pretty cool. There are some times where you can squeeze out a win if you can destroy them before anything happens, but it can be pretty tough. Leyline's really solid here. I don't mind the Engineers because, you know, maybe we can get a win by just naming whatever Narcomoeba is. Oof is good. Swords are pretty much irrelevant. Hex can come out. Ramanap's too slow. Night of Autumn's interesting, but I think we can definitely drop the Stoneforge Mystic package. Beast is probably a little bit too slow. Deafening Silence is fantastic. Oof is fine. Gaddock Teeg is fine because it stops Dread Return. Sylvan Library is probably a little bit too slow. Screws is fine because it interacts with the graveyard. Thalia is great. The swords are interesting. Obviously they would have been really great, but otherwise I'm not too sure how good they actually are. I do like the second Prelate. I probably don't mind dropping like some number of land, like a Savannah. Even like 2 Knights. I don't mind this. This is still pretty strong. We still have enough creatures to actually win the game with as well, which is nice. Yeah. Really want to see a Leyline. Nice. But this, my friends, is a trap hand. I don't think that this is a keep. It does have Leyline, which is nice, but it doesn't really have much else. I'm going to assume my opponent also brought in Force of Vigor for the Leyline, so... I think I would rather a hand where... Yeah, I can just do something else because, you know, they do have wins other than a Leyline. As Matt says in chat, they can Charbelcher you, so... What Swords does is you can Swords Narcomoebas with the triggers on the stack so that once they all come back into play, they only have maybe 2 to sacrifice instead of the full. So it's a very small thing. I guess you could also hit, like before, if they play a creature being tapped out. I don't think this hand does enough. The only thing that I like about it is that if we draw into a green source, we can Green Suns for Collector Oof. But I think there's better hands. This is actually a brilliant hand because, yeah, we have turn 2 Collector Oof naturally. I think I'll bottom 1 Leyline because if they have the Force of Vigor, they can just hit both anyway. If they have like Echoing Truth, that doesn't matter either. So I think it's just Leyline that we drop. And then we just keep 3 lands, Collector Oof Knight. Okay. Happy to fetch for a Bayou and play Collector Oof. They could have packed, but they can't actually pact anyway. I don't think they can win an upkeep, so... This is a pretty nice start. Because if they play a land here, we can also wasteland it and then just keep going and building out our mana with birds. But thankfully we get there. The issue is that now we're on the draw, and they know about Leyline, so they know what sort of graveyard hate we use. They also know about Collector Oof. I think we don't change anything. I think the big thing about Swords to Plowshares is that although it might be pretty mediocre, I think it's better than anything here because it at least has some sort of interaction. I really want like Deafening Silence or Thoughtseize with Leyline. Like that's the dream. Like interaction and disruption all in one. Here's Thoughtseize. This is a tough one. So we have a nice answer to Empty the Warrens if they're on an Empty the Warrens deck, or if they're on an Empty the Warrens line. We also have turn 2 Green Suns for Collector Oof, or turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Noble, and then Green Suns. This doesn't have Leyline, but I think it's good enough. This is always the tough part, because this is obviously a combo deck that's going to try to combo you on turn 1. Hey Jax. Plague does nothing because of Bridge. Is Bridge non-token? I believe Bridge from Below, if that's what you're talking about, is non-token creatures. I'm gonna keep. I think it's on the fairer side against this deck, but I think it's good enough. And, you know, there's a world where going down is not good enough. Hey, Adrian, welcome. Hope you had a nice weekend. Playing in game 3 against Oopsal Spells, so really hoping we get a turn here. Ugh. There's Spy. Is that just it? Is that just game? I think that's... yeah, that's just game, right? Yeah, okay. Maybe the mulligan to Leyline was needed? Did they bring in Force of Vigor? Okay, they did bring in Force of Vigor. That makes me feel a little bit better. But only 1, 2, 3... okay, so they had a few. And Nature's Claim. Okay, so they do have some outs to it. Yeah, that's Legacy sometimes. Bridges. Yeah, pretty disgusting, but we're playing Mav. We're playing Mav, so we don't have too many outs to combo decks. We are 1, 2. Should have just won before them. I know. I mean, play around it. If they have a turn 1 play around it. Not too hard, right? Question. If I turn up my air conditioning here, can you hear a fan in the background of this mic? Now. I don't think it was the worst hand. I think it had a lot of play to it. It just wasn't a Leyline hand, which... I think that's fine. I think it's a trap to try to mull to Leyline, especially when they have such good outs to Leyline. Alright, up against J. Franz. A little bit slow. These could be rough, but I don't mind it. It's got a fair bit of interaction, which is nice. I can get my basics if I want. But yeah, I think if I knew they had 12 trophies with Oops, I definitely would have mulliganed the opening hand in game 1. Pretty happy to keep this. There's a high chance my opponent's on a creature-based deck, so the swords are really relevant, and then the knight's really good against anything else. J. Franz keep. Planes. Okay. Pretty happy I kept this hand. You can go for a basic here as well. Knight of Autumn is a fantastic draw, because I don't have a great out to Vial or equipment. Port's fine. I also don't mind just Wasteland here. It does put us back a little bit, but it does stop them from putting us next turn. I don't think I'm playing a 3-drop next turn, most likely. Nice. That's a great draw. Doesn't get much better than that. Wow. Alright. Cradle. Happy to go for a Bayou here, Savannah, and play the Knight. And then next turn we can either cast the Ram Up and get value from it straight away, or the Knight of Autumn if they play some sort of a artifact. Nothing is pretty tough. I actually don't mind just getting back a fetch land here, because it also means I can get Dried Arbor, which makes this Cradle a bit better as well. This also means I can hold up Swords to Plowshares here. Swords is fine. I've already got back a land from it, which is fantastic, so... 3 mana pass is interesting. I am going to get Dried Arbor here, and even just start attacking. It's a huge uptick if I draw into like a Jide here, that'd be pretty good. Opponent thinking about swords. Maybe they're playing some tech in like Aven Mind Sensor. I do want to be pretty patient with this Knight of Autumn and not just cast it as a 3/4. Recruiter's fine. If they get a Wisp, I can just wait for them to play the Wisp. If they get a Palace Jailer, I probably want to cast the Knight if I don't draw into a creature, just to make sure I have multiple threats in play. Mum. Okay. Well, that's a pretty good target. I can wait, because if I draw Plague Engineer, then I take out both these creatures. Scoos. Okay, so we have to deal with the Mum here. I can then attack with the Dried Arbor. Funnily enough, a lot of creatures have left the field, but none are in the bin. So let's go like this. I don't want to play the second black source. I want to keep that until I really need it, so just going to play Cradle and pass. But if they have Flicker Wisp and start getting this Recruiter going, that's when this game can really turn. Yeah. No point eating bins. Really just want like a Stoneforge Mystic or a Plague, which is pretty tough. I'm playing 2 and 2 in the deck, and then on green, so I can't find them with Green Sun Zenith. Oof. Okay. Pretty happy just to attack again here. I don't really want to cast the Oof either, because it turns off my own equipment. They're going to trade here. I'm actually pretty happy with this. I think Screws isn't the greatest creature in this matchup. And then having a flyer is huge. So this is actually a pretty nice trade for us. Happy just to pass here. Very interesting trade. I think the Flicker Wisp is a better resource than the Screws is for me, especially looking at graveyards. Tough spot. Hey Thokash, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? Hey Rourke, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? We'll see if my opponent casts the Jide here. They don't. They get another Stoneforge. That's pretty good. I will give them that. So I guess we have one turn here to play Jide, equip it, and then play our own Collector Oof. Thalia not great when they have a Krakus out here either. I don't believe they're blocking the Dryad because the Recruiter of the Guard is a really good asset for them to flicker with Flicker Wisp, and the Flicker Wisp as a 3/1 flyer is just a better race. They probably don't mind just taking the one a turn. We kind of have to cast the Oof here, which is a little bit rough. Because we know about the Flicker Wisp as well in their hand, so they can get to a stage where they can play the Jide. And then flicker out this and equip it and attack in. Skyclave's really good. Take out the Collector Oof. I feel like I don't have a way back into this game. Especially seeing out with the Skyclave, or with the Stoneforge Mystics, they have ways to put in equipment at instant speed. So even if I can Knight of Autumn a Jide, it's probably done too much damage already. Yeah. Get a free attack here. They didn't get Batterskull. I guess they could have Batterskull, but then I get to hit it. Jide, clean the board. Even here, like next turn if I cast the Knight and hit the Jit, they've cleared my board. They have like multiple flies in air. They can really attack here with everything. They have another Wisp in hand. Just was able to generate way too much value. As good as the swords were, we got to deal with 3 mums. Yeah. But just not good enough. Really needed to draw into some sort of threat and just didn't really hit it. But that is going to happen. I don't think you even care about the Thalia at this point because you have the Krakus. I think that is a lot better. The token. Green Suns is interesting. We don't really have anything here that's fantastic other than just a Knight. So we get to hit the Jit. But then we know about the sort of Fire Knights in hand. Hextrick is interesting, but it's a bit too slow. I think even this knight is too slow, unfortunately. Because they can just attack with everything here. We have no cards in hand. They can hard cast the sword, and then just attack with everything. And we definitely take 7. We can block here and here, but then we take 8, 9, or 9. So we'll see if my opponent can see that. We have some good cards on the board, which is nice. I don't mind Thoughtseize and Plague Engineer. Sylvan Library is also pretty good, and Kai is okay, especially if we can reset a Plague Engineer or a Knight of Autumn and get some value off them. I'll be pretty happy. There's the sword. There's the attack with everything, and there's the concession. So I like taking out a mix of hate for blue decks, which are these 6. I like Kaya. I like the full 4 Thoughtseize and the Plague. I don't mind the Sylvan Library. I actually think Sylvan Library is better than the Skoos. Just seeing that most of our removal is Exile. And usually they bring in things like Rest in Peace, so this seems pretty straightforward. A nice clean kind of switch up. Really want a mana start, so Mana Accelerant in a Noble Hierarch would be cool. Especially if there's a Green Suns in hand, going for like a turn 2 Oof for some sort of extra removal for Mother of Runes, and the Plague Engineer is nice. I guess the one dynamic of the matchup that's changed a lot is how good Plague Engineer is against the turn 1 Mum, because it used to be answer the Mum turn 1 or die to the Mum. But now we have multiple ways to get out of it later on in the game, which is really nice. I don't mind this hand. It just doesn't have a great answer to a Vial start. It has a great answer to a Mum start. The Dried Arbor kind of makes this a 6, and if this was a 6, I would probably keep it. We can play around Wasteland and Port on the first few turns, and then play either a Knight or a Plague, which is kind of cool. The issue being that we have a lot of good 1-drops in Mana Accelerants, Thoughtseize that we just don't have in this hand, that obviously get worse over time, so there is some consideration for a mull, but it's nice to have the Plague. The issue is that it's pretty reactive. I think in this matchup I have to be pretty proactive. So I am going to mulligan this. This is actually a lot better. I'll keep this, and we get to play the Thoughtseize turn 1, so I'll keep this and bottom the Wasteland, and just keep my mana sources. I could also keep Wasteland and then fetch for Scrubland, but I kind of want to keep these around just in case. I'm going to go down the Wasteland. Mum Stoneforge Batterskull. This is a hand that I'm pretty happy to drop the Stoneforge here. But I kind of hope that my opponent doesn't draw Aether Vial, because although they have a Port to keep us off turn 3 Plague Engineer, I hope they go Mum into Mum. It is a pretty good 7. Martinez, 100%. But I feel like I needed to get a little bit more out of it. I'm going to play a fetch and pass. And really hope that they play Port here and then second Mum. Yeah, Stoneforge getting legit and also putting in an early Batterskull is a bit of an issue. The Knight will hopefully be bigger than that. Looks like they're just playing the Mum and passing. That's interesting. Sylvan Library is pretty good. Sylvan Library is really nice. I like just getting the... Probably keeping the Bayou for now, just to keep this fetch land as a black source, and playing Library. Knight's also nice because it can start wasting landing my opponent. Knight is open to more removal. Yeah, I like Library. If they want to Skyclave the Library, that's fine. At least they're not Skyclaving a creature. And then hopefully down the line we can get some play out of it. Containment Priest. That's still fine. It is a human. Yeah, I think the Library just has the biggest upside. They found Stoneforge, that's pretty big. And the Mum, okay. That is more than fine. So now we can draw Swords to Plowshares at the top and play Plague and Swords in the same turn, which would be pretty cool. Just Knights. I feel like I kind of have to pay for some of these here. I do get the Shuffle, so maybe not. Let's go put on top, and keep a Knight. Play a land. Play Plague on human. Pro's fine, especially because I can just do something in upkeep if I did have a Swords to Plowshares. So they could attack him with Jide here if they want. I can't get dried up because of the Containment Priest. Priest also turns off Green Sun Zenith, which I think is pretty good here. So I think if they do attack with both, with Jide, I block the Priest. Because the Knights are going to be bigger than the Batterskull down the line anyway. They're just going to hold up. That's interesting. Alright, I do want to get rid of those cards on top, so let's shuffle. Get a Bayou because it's another black source. Birds is mediocre. Swords to Plowshares is where it's at. I'd probably even take a Thoughtseize here. They're going to float a green. I don't think I can do anything here at instant speed anyway, so there's no point floating. My own Jide. Oh, but they took down the land. Rough. Put on top, put on top. Play Knight. Which will be a 4/4. And then just pass. They put in Batterskull, they untap. They can attack with a equipped Jade Batterskull, which I don't think is the worst. I can even just block it with the Plague Engineer. And then swing back with my own Jit. The thing that really breaks us here is an extra land and a removal spell in like Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshares. But for now we're looking okay. See what my opponent thinks of. Hey, Shade of Hades. Welcome. I hope you're well. Hope you're having a nice weekend. There's Jit. Alright. This is fine. The question is, do I even block here? There's some considerations because I do want to swing back with the Jit. So I think I'm actually happy here to block because then they don't have the germ. I think this is fine. They have 2 cards left. Okay. Oof is pretty nice, but it doesn't really do anything here. Put on top. Put on top. I think we just go for Jide here, which is a little bit annoying because if we have 2, they get to attack with it next turn. But I think that's just, it's just too good not to. The other play is to cast a Knight here. Another Knight's actually pretty interesting. We can play another Knight and collect Oof, which does turn off the Jide. If we attack, they can actually kill the Knight, which is interesting, because they can block with Containment Priest and then give it -2, -2. So maybe the second Knight here is better. I also then get a shuffle off the top of the library, which is pretty good. I think that's correct. Yeah, I like turning off the Jide as well. Or at least making them have removal for it. Because they can't Jide it, which is nice. And now we get to 6, which is kind of cool. We don't have Maze in the deck, unfortunately. You can find the deck list using the deck list functionality. It's just on the screen as well. The only utility lands in this deck are Gaia's Cradle, Dryad Arbor, Horizon Canopy, Caracas Wasteland. Opponent has 3 cards. We don't know what any of them are. Cataclysm. That's really interesting, because I think that puts us in a pretty nice spot if we get to keep a Knight here. And also the Sylvan Library. Unless my opponent can untap and swords my creature, I think we come out of this pretty good. This also makes the Knight huge, I will say. Alright, an artifact, a creature, this, and probably the Bayou because it's a black source, and it's also a green source, which means we can cast out Mana Dorks. Yeah, this seems really good. Vial, that's fine. Vial's pretty bad with the Containment Priest out anyway. Green Suns is fine, we get to get dry. Oh, we can't get dried up because of this. But we do get to go for something like Noble Hierarch, which is nice. I guess the Jide is there, so... They have 0 cards in hand, so put this on top. This is actually pretty dead as well because of the Containment Priest. So I think it's just going to be Forest, play Jide. No point attacking because I don't want them getting more. Triggers off their Jide. They have 1 card. What is it? I'd love them to play a land. Oh, wow. Removal spell is pretty good. Hexdrink is pretty good, but the Jide kills it. Yikes. Can't Green Suns. I guess we try to keep this. We have to dig, but this really sucks. The Path was like the one card that's really good, because even a Swords to Plowshares, at least we gain the life. We kind of just have to dig here, but not great. See if they Wasteland us. They don't. Rough. Might as well use the mana here. And then pass back. Yeah, very close to it. The Oof is in the bin. The Knight of Autumn is in the bin. No, okay. Rough. Yeah, that's us. Rough. Not much we can do there. Alright. Up against Hero. This is a pretty sweet hand, I'll keep this. Toma Noble. I'm not too sure. I'll have to ask Achilles. I think Decay is really good, but maybe Achilles wanted to try something else with like the prelates in the main deck. Try to get there with creatures. Oof. This hand is not good against D&T. But they're not playing a turn 1 play, which is nice for us. Not having beers after, yeah, after working out is pretty poor. What were you gonna get, Adrian? No turn 1 play, but planes most likely means they have swords. Nothing. Interesting. Snow. That's fine. We have the Caracas, which is nice. I don't want to prelate for 1. It does turn off Vial and Swords to Plowshares, but I think here I'm happy to just play our own Thalia and hold up Caracas. Ramanap's not great here either. I can play it next turn with the Windswept Heath to get it back. So I guess I can do that down the line. I think you could definitely compare Maverick to D&T. Phil Gallagher and I did a piece with Brian Koval in Deep Analysis, which you can find here. And then Phil and I are working on a matchup analysis on the Green Sun Zenith that hopefully will be out later this week, which is pretty cool. Bow and Phil's just got a restock of the Currumbin Valley range. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Skyclaver's fine. Has to be targeting the Thalia, the Noble here, surely. There's no point taking Thalia with the Krakus up, yeah. That's fine. I don't mind just Krakus the Thalia and F6, just to save some time. Night of Autumn. I can save that, which is nice. I don't mind just ramming up here off the Windswept Heath so I can get back next turn. Can also go for a Bayou to get double green and black mana. Also get a free attack here with Thalia, which is nice. Not sure if MTGO is lagging here or if it's just my opponent. What I don't want to see here is probably just Flick Wisp on the Skyclave apparition. Take out the Ramanap. That look out beer. I'm gonna look it up now. Ugh. Oh, this looks sick. That's a very cool branding. Nice. Alright. We got a new beer. Double Skyclave and Mum is really solid. Yeah, I've heard as well that people are experiencing a lot of lag on MTGO. Once is interesting. I'm going to tap the Caracas here, because if we draw a Wasteland, I want to cast that most likely, or play that. I kind of want to find a Plague Engineer here, let's be honest. But then I need to find another source as well. Yeah, I think it's just Wasteland their Wasteland. To keep them from wastelanding my own Bayou. It'll be interesting to see if they're open to attacking with their Skyclaves into a Thalia. They can activate the Mum and give it protection, but if we then, have a Swords next turn, then we can just take out the Mum, which is pretty huge. They could also have one of their own 2 to 3 Caracas to deal with the Thalia, which I kind of love. I'd love to get rid of the Thalia so I can start casting this Green Suns. I'm happy just taking this. There's no great block here. I don't know that I'm drawing a Swords to Plowshares next turn, so... Yeah, this is definitely lagging a bit. I'm going to quickly not concede. I'm going to quickly close MTGO. And then load MTGO. And hopefully this fixes it. Two drops are tough because it stops me from casting Sylvan Library and my own Jide, and it only stops them from hard casting their own Jide. This is really tough. I think here I don't mind... Oh. There we go. Okay. Return this now. Play Cradle. And then just Green Suns for Hex Drinker. Hey Pakian, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? So going down to 9 next turn, that's probably okay. But yeah, unfortunately, kept a good hand for any sort of blue deck, but the Prelate and Thalia are cards that I'm probably going to be siding out against D&T. Big fan from YouTube? Very cool. That's very cool to hear. Oh, they had the Jide? Wow. That's really rough. At least we can double block, and they can only give protection to 1. Just to get it off the field. Not great though. We do get to Night of Autumn the Jide, which is nice. Yeah, very cool. I recently broke into the 1,000 subscriber group on YouTube, which is cool. So now my videos can be monetized, which is pretty awesome. So big shout out to those of you who are watching this on YouTube. I very much appreciate your support. It is, yeah, very cool. Thank you, Adrian. It is pretty cool. Nice little goal to tick off. Interesting that they're using the counter now, probably because they have the Cradle in hand, but the counters can be significantly more powerful if you are holding them. I think Swords to Plowshares is my only draw that I can draw here. I have Night of Autumn, but then I really want to be able to kill this mum as well. But at least Night of Autumn gives me a creature as well. I guess they get to kill it with Jide, but at least it's off the field. That's what I want. Hey, thanks D5. I think my there's definitely small plays that I can be doing better as a content creator. It does unfortunately feel sometimes pretty bad if I do make a big misplay, and I know that I kind of have to put it on YouTube. There was one yesterday that I definitely did not recommend. I do not recommend any other player doing it, but you know, sometimes you got to make the plays that are terrible so other players can see them and know never to do them. So this is tough. Okay, so what are we looking for? We are looking for Plague Engineer. Plague Engineer would be perfect because it answers the mum and then it gives me a blocker for the Skyclave. We want to hit maybe another Reliquary wouldn't be too bad here. The Prelate's really tough because I really don't want to name anything. If I name one, I know I'm going to draw Swords to Plowshares. But the Prelate does also give me, you know, a creature to start attacking with a Sword of Fire and Ice, which might cause them to start using their mum when they don't want to use their mum. Wisdom laughs at itself. I like that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of progress over perfection. Alright, what do we got? Probably tapping us off black here. Don't draw Plague. Ooh, Jide, okay. Well, that's a pretty good reason to start getting in with this Prelate. So let's go Prelate. I'm just going to name 5 because it stops Batterskull, which is one card that we don't have in my deck. It does stop Green Suns to an extent, but I think this is fine. You're one of the most positive content creators, always talking up every opponent's deck instead of ranting about bad matchups. Thank you, Sir Matthew. Yeah, I definitely used to get, and I probably do get salty every now and then, but it doesn't do anything. I'd much rather just be in a position where I can accept the loss and maybe, like, you know, if my opponent gets to win through a cool way, like on turn 1 through Oopsal spells, that's very cool. That's what Magic's about. But yeah, I think tilting can definitely affect your games where it shouldn't. So if you tilt in, like, you know, round 1 of a 5-round match, then you can have a pretty bad time. So getting to a situation where you're happy to kind of do something around that and just, you know, take it on the chin, it's much better. Especially in paper Magic, it's really cool. Because you can get into a situation where you start talking to your... Oh, another mum. I like that. I like that a lot. But yeah, I think yeah, being more positive in Magic it helps you a lot because it also just opens up, like, talking about decks after games, because, you know, a lot of the times you might feel a little bit rough if you're not going to. I'm rambling here. I'm not making sense, but yeah. Thank you. Portable. That's a very nice compliment. Thank you very much. I hope you're well. Come on, Plague. One time. Okay, this is interesting because it turns on Dryad Arbor as an attacker. So what we can actually do is play Jit. Oh, we can't. Okay, wait. Let's go back. Let's return Thalia. Now we can play Jitte. And I can either get Dryad Arbor here and equip. I think that's better, just from a mana perspective. Get Dryad Arbor. Now Cradle taps for 2, and we can equip here and then pass. Sophie first. It is tough because the double mums do nothing until I draw Plague Engineer. But they are currently tapping me off the Bayou, so maybe the play there was actually to put the Jedi on the Dryad Arbor to get them to actually port down the Dryad Arbor in upkeep and then allow me to draw into Plague Engineer. But with the way they're playing, I kind of feel like they're in a position where they're happy just to keep putting down the black. Ah, interesting. Okay, yeah, the Sword of Fire and Ice does create a 4/4, which is actually very relevant. I didn't see that. That's a great point. Yeah, I guess next turn, if I can get the sword on the Dried Arbor and then double block the Skyclave, they have to consider what they want to kill. Because if they give protection to green, then it doesn't... Then the Prelate still kills it and I get the Jide counters, so... That's pretty interesting. So they tap down the Bayou here, we use the Cradle for Thalia, and then we have access to 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. Which is pretty good. I guess a land drop wouldn't be the worst, because it means I don't have to tap the Dried Arbor to attack. Gonna go after the Bayou again. The Cradle! Now that's interesting. Plague, one time. Ah, so close. 1, 2... Return. Play Sword, play Noble? I think that's just the play. Ooh, okay. Green Suns is really good as well because I can get Questing Beast, which makes damage unpreventable, which actually turns off Mother of Rune's ability to actually protect creatures, which is kind of cool. Yeah, Questing Beast is in the deck. There we go. We got someone in chat already on it. Haha. Very nice. Ooh, okay. Okay. What if we block here? We block here. They have to use a mum, and then we can untap and have 2 creatures that attack that they have to give protection with. I actually really like that. This kind of forces them to use the port on the Dried Arbor. Hey Shade, a huge thank you for the sub. That is very cool. I hope you're enjoying this content. A huge thank you for hanging out. Let's hope we can hit our outs here. And we'll see how my opponent actually taps down our mana here. Oh, Sarah Revenge is pretty good. Sarah Revenge is really cool. Be cool, be cool, be cool. Nice. I like your badge as well. Very cool. Alright. Port is going to tap down. It has to be the Dried Arbor here, right? Because we can return Thalia. We can equip... I guess we kind of need the Cradle as well. So it's going to be interesting how they tap here. I probably want them to hit the Bayou. They can hit the Cradle, okay. We can't do anything at instant speed. Stoneforge doesn't do enough here. We already have the equipment in play. Okay. I think it's just equip Sword to Noble and play Stoneforge Mystic and hold up Caracas. No great attacks just yet. Let's do this. Makes it a 3/4, which is kind of nice. There's some thought to also putting on the Jide and just leaving the Caracas behind, but I feel like this is better. Really tough spot. At least we have 10 minutes on my opponent, which is nice. Yeah, I should definitely, if anyone in chat actually has some good ideas for channel points, I would be very happy to update them. Instead of just stay hydrated. I think, yeah, some cool ideas for channel points would be considered greatly. I could just see an attack just with Sarah Avenger here. Yeah. Still land. Pick the play? Ooh, I like that. Okay. I like that a lot. So one thing that I didn't do here was just return Thalia when I could have. What I get to do now is that because I didn't return Thalia during their main phase or during their turn, they can't hardcast a Batterskull, which is pretty good. But they do have a Sword of Fire and Ice, so this is looking tough. I don't believe even like Plague Engineer gets us out of this. $50,000 do nothing? Wow, okay. F6? Yeah, okay, I could see an F6 button, maybe. That would be pretty harsh, though. What do they go after? They're still going after Cradle, that's fine. Yeah, rough. I mean, we can attack and hope that something happens. I also have to go to the bathroom, so if you guys in chat want to talk about sideboarding, here's my board. It'll definitely come up in a second. Our opponent has it. Alright. Sideboard away, please. Nice. Dare to be a donut, I like it. Thalia out. Prelate out, Gaddock Teeg out. We like the Plague Engineer, we like the Kaya, we like the 4 Thoughtseize. I like taking out the Ooze as well. Yeah, so I think the second library is actually pretty good. I think this is pretty strong. Ooze is interesting. I think they're going to bring in Graveyard Hate, or most D&T decks do. And also, there's just so much exile that Ooze doesn't have the ability to really take over a game against D&T. So I think this is fine. And Thoughtseize is really nice if we can snag a turn 1 Vial or a piece from Recruiter or Stoneforge Mystic. I think this is a little bit rough. The mana's just not there. Even if we find like a fetch land off this, we could, you know, go for Dried Arbor turn 1, then turn on the Cradle, but I want to have a nice clean hand, and this is a nice clean hand. I'll keep this. Let's bottom the Savannah. And then hopefully find another fetch land off the once. 100,000 points, I play your deck. That's pretty good, yeah. I like something like that. Haha, equipment for chokes is a strong play. Knight of Autumn's actually really nice as well. I like Knight of Autumn. Ramanap's also interesting. I think Knight's just good because... Well, this is actually interesting, because Thoughtseize can take a Vial, so I don't really care about having the Knight. I kind of want the Ramanap in case I don't find a 4th land and I can get back the Verdant. So I think Ramanap is fine. They do have a Vial start, so that's pretty huge. I can take that out, which is nice. They do have a Serra Avenger, which is pretty hard to deal with, and they don't have a hand that Plague's actually good against here, so I'm just going to take the Vial and pass. Hey Pokey, welcome, I hope you're well. X amount of points for a collab stream. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. 10% of the way for my deck being played. Interesting. Oh, they drew the Vial? Oh, rough. Alright. I think our best draw is literally just... I guess they have the swords for mana accelerants, so Green Suns isn't even that great. Wasteland. Now we're in a tough spot. Thoughtseize bug? Yeah. Because if they wasteland our scrubland, it just puts us back a whole turn. The issue is as well, I don't want to play the Plague Engineer into no value, and I don't want to play the Ramanap into no value. So both of them are kind of, like, at least, you know, turn 4 plays. I could just see Wasteland pass. Wasteland me pass. Oh, snow covered? Interesting. No Wasteland. Huh. Swords. That's a good out to the Serra Avenger, which is nice. It's just going to be Plains pass. It's tough, because if they wasteland us next turn, we still can't play the Ramanap without getting value out of it, so... No mum, that's sweet. I probably want to Swords the Serra Avenger in their next upkeep before the Vial goes to 3, so they can't save it with like a Flicker Wisp. But really not a spot where I want to be for Maverick. Wow, they're just going for the basics. That's really interesting. I did not expect that. I really expected this Wasteland to be fired off early on. Because now we get to... Thoughtseize is interesting. Sack this. Go and get Bayou. No, I shouldn't have got Bayou. That's really rough, because what I wanted to do was play the Ramanap, get back the fetch land, and then Thoughtseize, but I can't do that now because these are my two black sources. That is fine. Hey T5, thank you very much for the sub. That makes that misplay all that much better. A huge thank you. That means a huge lot. We get back the Verdant, and then I guess we just hold up the Swords to Plowshares off a off a Savannah. But yeah, just a case there of not thinking my line through before I actually do it and thinking on the go, where Just doesn't line up that well. But at least, you know, we were patient with the Ramen app. We got some value out of it, which is nice. So the swords isn't too bad. But I believe Achilles is just playing the 2 black sources. Legacy, Achilles, Bayou, Scrubland. This is actually pretty tough as well, because I don't really want to spend his swords on a Serra Avenger. I'd much rather see if they have equipment that they want to equip to it and swing in. But the thought of them saving it with this Vial... You know, I should probably even do it here just to play around like Charming Prince in case that's in the deck. Probably better just to do it in end step just to play around any sort of shenanigans. Yeah, especially with Loam, Jake. There's a lot of times where you have to think well in advance of what you're going to play. And one thing with Loam especially, so a deck like... We'll get there. We'll get there. I think that's called a Bug Loam. 4-color Loam. Yeah, so a deck like this that plays the Triome, there were so many times where I should have just gone for this early because it comes in tapped, instead of getting just duels at end step and things like that. But we learn. Hey Matsol, very cool to see you. Most embarrassing one was grabbing Underground Sea and letting Seas resolve when I had Vial in hand. So many things like that. There have been a lot of times where, I remember against Doomsday, I think it was like a Canonist in play, and I had a Vial in hand, and my opponent cast a Teferi, Time Raveler, and I knew they were going to bounce it, and I should have just Veiled in response to the Teferi, because you can't, of course, do it after, but here I am. Just letting it slide. Alright, we know nothing. Stoneforge. Interesting. Let's go for Thoughtseize first. Just a path. Wow, really? Okay. The other Wasteland's a little bit scary, but... At least we can get Jide here. Static abilities that negate things on Planeswalkers were a mistake. I highly agree for the ones that are one-sided. Stream Legacy Challenge? I like that. I actually like that a lot. Unfortunately, the Legacy Challenges for me are at 2 AM. But I would do that for the team. I'm just going to pass here. Unfortunately, I think we'll get this game just by time, which isn't the greatest. What is my opponent on? Because we are currently 1-3, so show chat. What's your current record? I believe it says in here somewhere. Yeah, this is... I'm a huge fan of playing 2 Bayous, just because this can happen against decks like D&T. So let's go to equip. Especially seeing Ramen App's now gone, I don't actually have a way to cast these black spells. Skyclave would be pretty sweet. Flick Wisp is pretty sweet as well. What is my opponent's name? I can't find. Streamlabs. I'm looking for the bot. Does anyone know how I can find out what my opponent is currently on? What their record is? Game 2, currently 1-3. They didn't block, which is interesting. Stream Elements is broken? Yeah. There's a Heath. So we can try to go to town. Hiya! Oh, they're 1-3 as well? Okay. Double Wisp. Okay. Maybe they can actually get there in the air. I mean, Double Wisp is really nice here. And just not having access to that that extra black source is really going to hit us hard. I mean, do they have another answer? I guess we will see. Oh my gosh, another Wisp? We thought seized them and they had nothing. GG's. Didn't even need to concede here. Yikes. That's 1-4. That's 1-4. Why the blend of snow and non-snow planes? I think the main thing is cards like Prelate. What's the card? It's I guess what is it? What Predict? Thank you. Predict is a card where you choose a card name, then target player mills a card. If a card with the chosen name was milled this way, you draw 2 cards, otherwise you draw a card. So a lot of players who play Predict might target you because if you're a D&T player, you're probably playing, you know, 10, 12, 14 basic planes. So by playing planes and snow-covered planes, you half the chances of your opponent being able to draw 2 cards, which is pretty big. This was a pretty interesting league. For the record, Achilles is obviously a better player than me. He's got some great finishes in both challenges and leagues with Maverick. But a few times there, I really just didn't like the 2 black basics. This deck isn't playing Abrupt Decay in the main deck, so there is only a small, you know, need for black for Plague Engineer and Thoughtseize, but there were a few times where I really wanted that extra black source. So I'm going to run this back. I'm going to make a few changes and we're going to play another league.